If you've been on the internet for the past couple of weeks, you know that the internet does not like Velma. The show has a lot of problems, from character assassination to race swapping for no discernible reason, and making a lazy, long-time joke, drug-addicted character a man of color, which seems racist to me, bad writing, and over-cynical jokes. If there is a problem you could think of to have in a TV show, especially a reboot, Velma has it, and the internet has complained about it. But there's one standout problem I think that rises above the rest of them when it comes to this adult content and adult content in general. And this is a problem that I'm not seeing anyone else talk about. The problem is teenagers. Not teenagers watching adult shows. That's not what I mean. I mean teenagers being in adult shows. The first episode of Velma shows a bunch of women naked in the gym shower. Okay, they're naked, it's an adult show. Except for the fact that they are high schoolers. Fred in the show is confirmed to be age 16 in the Wikipedia article for the show, meaning that the girls, Daphne and Velma, are the same age. The show also contains other sexual content like Velma and Daphne kissing, which, in a normal context, is fine. Go off, queen. But it is for adults. This show clearly was made for all the people who thirst over Velma and Daphne, where people who get off to both of these girls can get off. The scene that really drives for me home, though, more than just Daphne and Velma kissing, which could be excusable on its own, is the fact that it is a shower scene full of 16-year-old girls where they are almost fully in the nude. And it is a show made exclusively for adults. They made that so clear with the advertising. I personally don't really agree with portraying teenagers overtly sexually in a lot of media. I think that we shouldn't have as much of it. I think it's a weird American problem. And I think it sets some weird tones. But things that are made for teens are going to contain teens. And that is acceptable to me. Shows like 13 Reasons Why and Euphoria are considered TV mature, but they are targeted specifically for teens. All the advertising, all the merchandising is towards teenagers and new adults, not older adults. Riverdale also contains explicit content, and that is TV-14. Again, I don't agree with abuse and nudity of underage characters in shows, period, but if it's targeted towards teens and it contains teens, I understand the demographic appeal. However, Velma is not targeted to the same sort of audience. It has been described in all advertising as for adults, the adult show, the adult version of Scooby-Doo. And if you look at everyone who's made a review of the show on the internet, they are all way past the young adult, new adult age. Moist Critical, for example, is 28 years old. Saberspark is 34. These are full adult men watching this show. No shade to either of them. They watched the show, they were disgusted. That's their job. But my point is, there is a large number of men and women who are watching the show who are not upstanding citizens, who are way too old for this. It's unknown what percentage of men are ephebophiles, which are people who are attracted to people only in their teenage years, but the general consensus of people on the internet, from what I can find, seem to think that it's a majority of men. I've seen the sentence, all men like pretty teenage girls, more times than I would like to have seen that. Ugh. And although, quote, less than 5% of the population are pedophiles, 96% of people who sexually abuse those under the age of 18 are men specifically. So although it's not all men, a large majority of the cases are men. Men who are being advertised to with this Velma show. Horrifically, in a continuation of that, 70% of sexually abused girls in the United States are between 11 and 17 years of age. That is a massive problem, especially since 1 in 4 women have been sexually abused in the United States. But we perpetuate this idea that it's okay if it's funny. grown men can watch nearly nude shower scenes of teenage girls, ones that we know for a fact a lot of people thought were hot and already wanted to have sex with because it's an adult comedy, and that's okay. But the egging on of predators and the normalization of adults consuming near pornographic material of underage characters is apparently okay in the United States because it's free speech. Because those are the laws that have been taken to the Supreme Court. So if your characters are cartoon and underage, it is okay if they're pornographic. However, I would like to point out that in a large number of European countries, this kind of content is banned. And I know what you're thinking. Crab, there's not really that much of a correlation between the media you consume and, what happens. Except I would like to point this out. 1 in 4 girls in America have been sexually abused. That is 25% of all girls. 1 in 6 boys have been sexually abused, which is about 17%. That is 2 in every 10 Americans, or 20% of the population. Nearly a quarter of those in the United States have been assaulted. That is a problem, especially because not everyone comes forward, so that number could be higher. What about other countries where this kind of content is more banned? In the United Kingdom, where this content is mostly banned, only 1 in 20 people have been sexually assaulted. That is about 5% of the population. That is a huge decrease in the number of people. But if you're still not convinced, in Australia, child pornography of any kind is completely banned. There was a case where a man was arrested for having pornographic Simpson material of their children. He was charged for holding legitimate child pornography and was put in prison for a very long time. The total rate of sexual abuse in Australia is about 121 people in a population of 100,000. Girls were about 926 of these people out of 100,000 girls. Overall, that is less than 1% of the population that has faced some sort of sexual abuse. And I'm not saying that it's entirely dependent on the fact that child pornography is banned or not banned, but I am saying there is a correlation between the media you consume and what happens in your life. The real problem with Velma, to me, isn't the fact that it's one of the worst shows ever created, not to mention one of the worst shows ever rebooted from a well-beloved franchise, but it is the normalization of predation. Because if we continue to allow this idea that it's funny if adults are consuming sexually explicit content about teenagers, it becomes normalized. And if it becomes normalized, we have an even bigger problem on our hand. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below on this, and if you found the scenes in Velma for an adult show as disgusting as I did, or if you don't have a problem with it. And I would like to know where you're from with your opinion, because I kind of want to see how this is culturally.